Hello everyone! So today we are going to be talking about Lord of the Rings because we're dorks, but more importantly, I just finished reading the books. More accurately, I did the audiobooks. I'd never actually read them before.
Those count. I think it counts.
I had 4th grade reading assignments to do The Hobbit, and it made me really kind of lose the taste in my mouth because my mother took charge of me reading it and it was a thing. But I wanted to really give it a try. So, you know, we're going to talk today about the differences between the book and the movies, and you have some strong opinions on this, and that's why you are here. So
I'm a little passionate about Lord of the Rings, so.
Just a smidge. But,
the movies and the books, I love them both. So.
Yes, you introduced me to the movies, because I was a little young when they were coming out, and I wasn't allowed to watch anything that was PG-13 until I was actually 13, and there's a whole story there, but we're not going to talk about that today. Anyway, yeah, so I kind of missed it in the theater.
Yeah.
But now I've watched the movies with you, the extended editions, of course. There is no other version, right? And,
Not according to me.
Yes. As far as you're concerned, no.
It's only extended.
So now I've read the books, all of them. I listened to them at 1.5x in my car, and it took about 3 months, which is saying something. I do a pretty decent Smeagol, so maybe we'll have to...
No, your Smeagol's great.
Yeah, we might have to do that at the end of the video. So we're going to be doing these kind of in order, I think. I think that makes the most sense. So the first thing that's very different between the books and the movies is an entire deleted like sequence and character, Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, I feel like I should let you do your thoughts.
No, go ahead.
I feel bad, it's your video, but...
You're a guest on this channel, you get to talk first.
I completely understand why they left it from the movie since they tried to make it photocentric and it wasn't really necessary and it was a calm moment when they're trying to build tension.
Hold on, you call the Tom Bombadil sequence calm?
When they're in the house, the whole house, the talking, the healing, the part that I feel like most fans are obsessed with is calm. It's
fair enough. I'm thinking of the part where the trees tried to kill them.
Well, the trees in the movie, it's just taken, it's different.
Yeah, they moved it into the ends, and I'm like, okay, that kind of works.
Yeah, they had it be like a little peril moment, but...
Yeah, but like, no.
It's not Tom saving them.
Yeah.
But no, like overall, I think the stuff that was taken out from Tom Bombadil was very calming, and I understand why they did that. I really didn't like the Tom Bombadil sequence when I first read it, but I was like 14, and I was like, this is boring, this is slow, I want to get to the story, which is why I think they took it out. But then when I read it again a few years later, when I was more stressed and more of an adult and things were harder, I was like, oh my god, I want to be in a house where I'm completely safe.
And they really couldn't have done the Tom Bombadil stuff without doing the song because it's like how he calms the trees and everything.
Yeah.
And the Lord of the Rings movies are kind of remiss in their songs. There's only like 2 in there.
They have some, but there's not as many.
Right, and they're not like...
They're very short.
They basically invented one for the death of Aemir.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
And then we have Aragorn singing and things like that, but it's not a ton. It's not as much as in the books, for sure.
No.
It's a lot less singing.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, if you're gonna do Tom Bombadil, you kind of have to do the singing, and they weren't really doing the singing. Oh, and Mary.
Yeah.
Mary sings as well.
Yeah, no, there's definitely songs, and Pippin sings to Denethor and stuff, but there's not as much.
Well,
not Mary and Pippin sing together, too.
That's true.
The Green Dragon.
Yep,
there are a lot of songs, there's just a lot of songs in the book.
Yeah, it's just not the same songs either.
No.
Like, they cherry-pick that a little bit, but I understand, like... A lot of people are not going to be super nerdy about it and want all the songs.
It was already too much for some people, so...
Another thing we do need to talk about is the differences in language, where they modernize a lot of things. There's a particular word in there that does not sound good to a modern ear that's used a lot, meaning a bundle of sticks or a cigarette, and that is not one that they were going to be able to keep in a movie like that. And like, it didn't have that connotation at the time that it was written, so I think that kind of change is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they let the smoking be in there, though.
Yeah, I know some people in the movie didn't want it in there.
Yeah.
They just wanted him, like, coughing or chewing toffee or whatever, as I said during the commentary.
Yeah,
They wanted Gandalf chewing toffees instead. But
yeah, it is a thing.
It's such a big thing in the books.
Right, and, like, it's an important point, too, so, it's, like, relevant to the plot in the books.
Yeah. Because they think that's why Gandalf is slow and to the hobbits, and like it's definitely there.
The other thing that I didn't really love that they changed is the Ent's eyes. I don't think they quite got it right, because they talk about the Ent's eyes ad nauseum in the books. Like, it's seriously like a quarter of a chapter talking about how bizarre and like soulful these eyes are. And for me, the movie just didn't quite get there. That's a character design type thing, but
I
they
think
looked
it
more.
did for what the graphics could do at the time. I feel like it did.
Yeah, because there wasn't like as much lighting and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
with
and
it.
normally there was like no emotion in a digital character before.
Yeah,
you
true.
know?
Like I just, I think that I think they could have been better, but they also looked natural to me. It didn't look like,
It's not super fake.
it's not super artificial.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a living creature.
Yeah.
Which also worked.
Did you like Tom Bombadil not being in the books? You never
Not being in the movies? Yeah.
Yeah, not being in the movies,
No,
sorry.
I don't. I
I
was.
can re-ask that.
God, that sequence just goes on and on and on and on. I was like, they are not like even really out of the Shire yet.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
and what bothered me about it too was that there was no mention of any of this stuff in The Hobbit, and he went basically the same way.
I don't remember if he went exactly the same way. I don't think he did.
I think he may have gone to the south.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I don't think they went exactly the same
But either
way.
way, like I couldn't get past that. I was just thinking the whole time, I'm like, why didn't Bilbo have to deal with this?
Yeah.
But they also didn't go to Mirkwood in Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
and they did in The Hobbit. So I'm like,
Yeah, it's different stuff.
yeah, no. So I was fine with Tom Bombadil. Like it would be the first thing on the chopping block for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that made sense to get rid of. We're skipping right over to Return of the King. 'Cause, like Two Towers had the Ents and the eyes and all that, and that was really only my only note about that. Do you want to do more? Do you have more? I assume you have more.
I have a lot from it. Well, I mean, there's just like when it happens. Like a lot of things happen in Return of the King that only happened there, but obviously everything with Faramir and taking Frodo and like
yeah, we can talk about Faramir for sure.
The flying Nazgul like attacking Frodo in front of Faramir, and like there's a lot that happens at the end
that's a
of
good
Two
point.
Towers. I understand why they did it. I don't have an issue with it. I had some issue when I definitely have an issue with the Faramir thing. I understand why they did it, but it does bother me.
It's one of those things where if you, and we've talked about this before, where if you don't show people being tempted by the ring, you kind of lose sight of the power
it makes
of it.
the ring a lot less
Because it's
powerful.
so abstract, even in the books, that it's like, it's not done verbally or visually in the books.
Yeah.
It's done very cerebrally and emotionally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because you get to really feel what Frodo's feeling. But
right.
if you just see Frodo giving in when these other people don't, it's like, oh, well, Faramir's a hero and Frodo's just weak, is what it comes out as.
Exactly.
And Frodo's not weak at all. He's incredibly strong.
No, exactly.
It's just Faramir is bizarrely good.
Yeah,
he's
well,
like
they
pure Hufflepuff.
Right, in the books, they frame it as like he's a descendant similar to Aragorn,
Yeah.
where Aragorn wasn't having those problems either.
Well, and Aragorn was basically, yeah, he wasn't as not tempted by it, I feel like, but he was also trying to like shun his whole birthright and who he was supposed to be
he wasn't
turning
quite
from,
there
and
yet.
I don't want any power. Like he was in a weird headspace.
For sure.
And obviously I love Aragorn, but Faramir is just very pure, and it's hard to have a pure character in a movie without it seeming weak, I think.
Yeah, and that's sort of the problem that a lot of people seem to have if they have a problem with Frodo.
Yeah.
Is that he's, a Mary Sue in that sense where everything just kind of works out for him and he's like super bubbly and happy and excitable and
Which I
everything.
could so argue with.
Of course. I'm like, did you not see him getting surly with Sam?
Or like holding a knife to his throat.
Right? Like, oh god, I'm sure that bothered you.
And then, yeah, no, I was not okay with it. I understand they had to show that, because in the book it's a perpetual threat, but it never actually happens, but it's always looming. And then in the movie, seeing it happen, it hurt because their friendship was so important to me. Faramir's purity was very important to me. A lot of those things were important, and I get why they had to show it in the movie. I wasn't okay with it on the first watch, and then I had to calm down, and I realized why they did it. I'm not happy with it, but I understand why they did it, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. You needed to show the tension some way, and you couldn't have it be all in like visions or like dreams.
No, or just
you had to
glaring
have
at
a real
each other
tangible threat
constantly.
on the screen.
Yeah.
And
that one, there's
that's
so many other actual tangible threats.
sort of what they did with the Eye of Sauron, in my opinion, because they keep cutting back to it in the movies a lot.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's there and it's a real thing, but it's like, it's not so
you need something visual
in your face. You need something.
It's not very often in something that's not like a purely internal drama where you don't have a visual bad guy. I mean, they do have orcs and Uruk-hai and all these people that are visual, and then to have the actual main bad guy not be visual is really hard.
I was not in love, after reading the books, with the death of Saruman.
Yeah, I was iffy with that too.
Which I think is Two Towers too. It might be Return of the King, but I'm pretty sure it's Two Towers.
I think it's Return of the King.
I don't think so.
I'm trying to remember. No, I think
we tend to watch them all together, so they just kind of blend together.
So we can even cut this out.
Like I even did the books in that way. Like I just went straight into the next one. But like I didn't love either way. We're getting into Return of the King anyway. Like you know like they kept Wormtongue stabbing him. That makes sense.
That's really important.
That's fine. It's really important. But like, there's an entire sequence at the end of the book where they go back to the Shire, and it's been overrun basically by Saruman and his forces. And like, it kind of makes me mad at Gandalf in the book because like he breaks his staff and like gets him out of the order, so he's not quite so wizardly anymore. We're left to believe that he has some powers left, but not like the same that he had before. And then he just kind of like disappears and he's like, you guys deal with this, I'm out. I'm Gandalf, I don't do that anymore. And like, it's kind of weird that like Gandalf is just so hands off with this guy. And I kind of wonder how much of that ties in with like, he doesn't want to be the one to deal with him. Because,
well, and it's hard too, because if you go back to the Silmarillion, like the wizards...
we didn't do that.
I know, but the wizards, like, they're not meant to interfere at all. So then it's a fine line, because it's like, they're supposed to guide, but not actually do things.
But like, wouldn't that mean that like, and as you know, Treebeard put it, as Fangorn put it, like, wouldn't that mean he would, like, this is a problem for a wizard? Like,
exactly.
Wizards should fix the problems created by the wizards, and this is part of that.
So I feel like that's a fine line. It's like, how involved do I get with stopping this wizard?
But like, also, it was a hobbit who was selling the stuff to him in the first place and sort of drew him into the Shire in the first place, so it really wasn't his fault, but he kind of took advantage of that situation.
No, it's a very muddy water, fine line, fine directive type thing.
But like, in my opinion, Gandalf knew exactly what the hobbits were walking into and was like, nah, I'm not dealing with that. You people figure it out. Like, you don't need a wizard because he's no longer really a wizard anymore. Yeah. You know, you guys are all
because I think Gandalf was like, I'm going to step in where I have to step in.
Yeah, like he had to be part of the destruction of the Ring of Power.
Yeah.
But he didn't have to step in for this because he knew they could handle it.
Yeah, it was.
And it sort of gets into this whole like, how strong is Gandalf the White? Like, what kind of vision of the future does he have and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. You know? No, so it's a fine line. And in the movies, they said that's why they added in the scoring of the Shire into like Galadriel's mirror, so they could have a little bit of that for people that were going to be upset it wasn't in the movies, but it would be really anticlimactic to have like, oh, the movie's over, the ring's destroyed, wait, there's still another fight. Like,
and it did feel that way really a little bit for me in the books, and I don't know if that's because I was like so used to the movie ending so starkly, but like when they come back to the Shire and it's all messed up. But like, I also think that's super, super, super important thematically, because like the whole time, especially in the movies, you're like, what is the threat? Why do these hobbits need to be involved? Why are they so invested in this? And the books make incredibly clear that they are a protected group of people that, like, without the protection of the word is right on the tip of my tongue, the Rangers, and other, you know, and Rohan and all those other places looking out for them, keeping these threats at bay, the constant threat from Mordor, regardless of Sauron, you know, at bay, then they would be overrun and taken over because they're too peaceful to really defend themselves. And like, the fact that they come home and everything's all messed up actually really makes a lot of sense thematically, because I'm like, okay, this meant something, you had to do this, and it would have been crazy bad if like you didn't.
Yeah, think how bad it would have been.
Exactly, like, they were powered up, you know, in the sense of like, being trained for fighting and stuff now to be able to defend their own home.
And it fits too, because he was basing it off of World War I. Like, the Homefront wasn't okay during that. When he went back home, things weren't quite right.
Exactly. Things were different. Yeah. You know? And
people were at risk in the homeland too. Like,
exactly. And it just adds this element of risk to their adventure that's like, no, this is important. It is. Because like, at the end of the day, in the movie, I'm kind of sitting there like, why do they care if Sauron takes over the world of men? Yeah, they'll probably get wiped out, but there's no immediate threat.
See, and I had like read the books first, so I didn't have a hard time getting that from the movie, so it's interesting hearing that, because like, to me it was like obvious because I was just already obsessed with the book, so I'm like, this is already a thing, you know? Right,
exactly, it makes perfect sense, but if all you see is just those movies, you're like, why does Frodo care?
No, that's interesting.
You know?
No, but I understand why they had to leave it off, because it would, if they're keeping it Frodo-centric and Ring-centric, it's just weird to be like, oh, the climax is done, wait, there's another climax coming.
Right, and then like, and it's such a smaller resolution than the Ring, you know. And Sam saying in the movies that by all accounts we shouldn't even be here. I'm like, Yeah, I agree.
I know.
Like, what are you doing?
I kind of fist pumped with that in the theater. I was like, hell yeah! They put that line in for people.
But no, for me, it read
angry.
as part of the problem where I'm like, I don't know why the hobbits care.
Oh, true. No, I
know?
was thinking it.
Because like the only reason that they seem to care is because they're chanced with it and they're the only ones that can handle it, and it makes his act more noble because he really doesn't have a stake in it. But like, it also kind of detracts from the point of the ring being that bad and what's actually at stake here.
Yeah, no, I never had that perspective on it because I was just so invested in the books.
Yeah, no.
You're all arrogant about it.
I'm just like, I have a point.
No, I never got that because I felt like, I don't know too, and I think I'm like used to viewing it as like a World War allegory, and so it's like, no, you have to protect everyone. Like, obviously, you're going to be screwed over, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was obvious that there was a looming threat, but it wasn't obvious that there was an actual, tangible, real-time, right-now threat for them. And the books made it very clear that things were going bad everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
You know, it was like a cloud of darkness just spreading.
Yeah.
The next thing we need to talk about is the fight between Frodo and Smeagol.
Okay.
They did bite the finger off, which is great, but I really kind of like the poetic justice of, you know, Smeagol being so invested in his precious that he just falls off.
I love that too. I agree it wouldn't look as powerful.
No,
but in
I get that there's this
really,
conflict
really
that's kind of been building, but they did a really good job of like having that conflict constant through the movies.
Yeah.
And we didn't really need them to physically fight at the end. And I kind of, like, they communicate the fact that he's so invested in this thing as he's dying in those final moments when he's holding it.
He doesn't
care
dying.
that he's being destroyed, but like it just changes the tone of the moment.
It does change the tone. I do worry that if there hadn't been a little conflict there, people would have complained the way they do for like Breaking Dawn. Like, oh, it's so stupid. You can't fall. Like, whatever. That's not any kind of conflict. Like, people get so caught up in that.
Exactly.
I feel like you need something a little visual, just a little more peril, and seeing Sam like saving Frodo and still caring for Frodo, because you just watch Frodo go off the deep end and go pure dark and pure evil, and I think showing that there was still that connection and they still cared was important.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it was important to like put Frodo at peril again, to be like, oh wait, we still care about this character, he's not just a bad guy now.
Right, he's not just part of the enemy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it wasn't wrong. It just wasn't right, you know?
It's different. I like it. I think it works well. I had to adjust because like I definitely was a person who wanted like everything exactly as it was in the books.
And it could have worked visually the other way. He could have like pounced on it and then just slid and fallen.
Yeah.
Like he could have been that could have worked. I'm sure they shot it multiple ways and this is the one that they chose, but like...
Yeah, I'm just worried it would have looked like slapsticky or silly unless you did it just right.
Exactly. Like,
and I feel like a lot of people wouldn't have been happy with it.
Yeah, seeing that conflict makes it a little easier to digest in a visual format.
Gives you like a moment to process.
Yeah.
Because I mean, how mad do people still get about like the whole idea about the Eagles or something? People are so caught up in like
my
things
God,
going too
do not get me
easily
started on the Eagles.
or not
Everyone who
easily
thinks
enough.
that is just totally ignorant.
I know they're not thinking it through, but that's
like
what
they're
I
a
mean.
flying Nazgul. Like
But
the Eagles are threatened.
I feel like people would have been like, oh well. I feel like people would have been like confused by a lot of it. 'Cause it would have been the whole like I honestly kind of wondered, I'm like, well, why did the ring even let Gollum fall? Because this should be protecting itself a little more than that.
Yeah, the ring didn't quite do its own job.
Yeah, because it's right there about to be destroyed.
Well, the ring doesn't have that much of a hold over hobbits. That's sort of the point. That's why they're essential to this saga.
Because they're Hufflepuffs.
But it should be self-protecting, as it has been with the hobbits before.
Yeah, and it gets worse the closer it gets to destruction, and it's like, and the closer it gets to Sauron, the closer we back to Sauron. You know, that's always the way I felt about it.
Yeah, it didn't quite hold up its end of the bargain. Sauron got screwed by his own ring.
I just feel like it was less confusing in the books that could still happen, but in the movies it may have been confusing. It's like, what? The ring has, like, the movie definitely presents it as, the movie has the mind of it, the ring has a mind of its own, the ring tells people what to do, the ring controls people. I feel like just having, like, Gandalf fall, or Gandalf, God. I feel like just having Gollum fall there would just look, right? It would just look a little like, well, that was too easy. That was like a cheat, you know?
Well, the whole idea of just like casually chucking it into a volcano is kind of cheap anyway, you know? Like, I feel like there should be more to it than that. Like,
it's so hard
considering that, like,
to
we
do.
see the process of the rings being made, and it's, like, all being forged and everything, and it's, like, elaborate, and then you're just like, bye, and that's the end of the ring.
It's just so hard to do internally, but again, you can't show that
Right.
super easily without conflict.
Yeah, there was always going to be a loss, because so much of what is happening to the characters who bear the ring is emotional and abstract and kind of like they feel off but they don't know how or why. It's kind of like Horcruxes in Harry Potter where they're like just off and they don't know what's up.
Yeah.
But yes. So the next thing we need to talk about is Aragorn's healing powers.
I was so glad there was a little hint of that.
A little hint, just a little hint, but like, you know, he is a healer and a warrior and the king and all these I mean really
He's perfect.
really this is his story. Like The Lord of the Rings is really much more about Aragorn than it is about Sauron. And it's him coming into his own. It's a coming of age kind of story.
No, you watch him progress.
Exactly.
From Strider to the king, and it's really an interesting progression, and he's just, I love his healing powers. I love it.
Yeah, you know, and like, it's never really explained how Merry and Éowyn survive the whole Nazgul encounter.
Yeah.
You're just kind of left to be like, well, he's in a sling, it's fine.
Yeah,
you know?
I know.
And like, no, they nearly died because like if it weren't for Aragorn's intervention, and that was a major point because that's how the people came to accept him as the king. It's not like he just was like, oh yeah, I'm descended from these people, so I'm your king now, and they're just like
oh,
sounds
you're
legit.
Fitting with all these old
Yeah, exactly.
stories.
Like there were legends about him coming with healing and all of these other things, and like, you know, I love his snark with the herb master, where he's like, and he'll tell you that it's a useless herb and we don't keep it. Like, you know, I'm like, oh, so snarky. I love it.
He's so snarky.
Snarky Aragorn is my favorite.
No, and then he saves Frodo right in the beginning too.
Yeah, well, that's in the movies.
Yeah.
So I'm really to talk more focused on the differences.
No, I'm talking about the movies what they were showing.
Yeah, but like, we are given that, I don't know. The other thing I want to talk about is Arwen. In the books, I never got the sense that they were like romantically involved. And really? And like, I got that there was like attraction there, but honestly, I was shipping him and Éowyn so much harder.
No, that's why they really had to up Arwen in the movies, because like Éowyn on paper seemed like a better match, you know?
She's a fighter. She's exactly the type of person that she's of royal bloodline. Like, it makes sense.
It just seems like if it wasn't for Arwen, it would be obvious that they were going to be together.
Yeah, but then there's this whole elf connection with the Dunedain and all of that, and the Numenor and all that. I don't quite understand it because I haven't done the Silmarillion, but there's some elf thing happening there.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason he can speak Elvish and stuff, and why they are really invested in him. And it's not just because like they're kind of the like dictators of lore and legend and like destiny in that realm and everything. But like I don't know. I'm torn on how I feel about Arwen in the movies, because to me it just is a different character that to me in the movies feels kind of forced. Because I'm like, this is like shoving this relationship on us.
Yeah, because I had to keep visually showing it so we didn't forget, so we didn't fall more for Éowyn, you know?
Well, yeah, because Éowyn's a badass.
Yeah, no, I love Éowyn so much.
And like, a thing that people do not understand about Éowyn, and this bothers you so much.
I'm very passionate about this.
I'm going to try to say it more amicably than you often do.
Éowyn is extremely important to me, so...
But like, it wasn't for Aragorn. She was not about being there for Aragorn.
No,
like,
she pretty much loved Aragorn because of who she was and the other things she loved.
Right, exactly. It was more about them being compatible than about their compatibility.
Yeah, he represented like every ideal that she loved.
Right, and you know, she's not a man. You know, she is a woman who wants to be part of that world, but cannot be because
wants to do the same things men have the option to do. She doesn't want to sit around at home. She wants to go after valor and glory and defend and fight.
Right, exactly. And it's so much more about the lack of freedom of choice in her life because of the gender she was born with that is the frustrating thing about her character.
She's like a hardcore feminist.
Exactly, and the people who reduce her down to like some person with a crush on Aragorn.
Like, oh, you just want to fight, you don't want to be away from Aragorn.
No.
You're trying to impress Aragorn. And I'm like, that is not what
that is
she
so
is
not
at
it.
all.
She doesn't really care if Aragorn even sees her doing this.
No,
she just wants honor for honor's sake.
Yeah, she falls for him partly because he
She's basically a Klingon.
The fact that like he sees her. Yeah, true. Like he sees her and respects her and treats her seriously.
But
so
not
that's
like,
what makes her fall for him.
But without losing her femininity. He doesn't like she doesn't have to hide in a boy costume like she does in the movies and in the books to like be accepted by him. he sees her for all that she is and doesn't think there's anything wrong with it.
He's like, no, you're a woman, you want to fight, I understand. He's like, I think you over-glorify war, but so does your whole culture.
Right, but and even in the books he says, like, yeah, because you haven't done it.
Yeah.
Like, you see this honor and all that, but you're not, like...
Which is true for anyone that
no, sorry, that was more Aemir than Aragorn. Aemir was more like, listen, you don't want to...
It's terrible.
It's awful.
Yeah, he was getting the bad side, not the good side. Which is similar to people being like, oh, you want to be feminist, but you don't want, like, the draft. It's like, no, you do. You just maybe don't want the draft to exist.
Right, exactly. And we could go off about that for an hour. But yeah.
Which is why I'm glad she does end up with Faramir, because I think they will balance each other out well, because he will, like, dial her back from the war obsession. And then I also think it's interesting, I actually got in a fight when the movies came out with someone on IMDb back when they had message boards there.
Oh, God.
About whether or not Lord of the Rings glorified war, and I said it didn't, because, and this person's like, no, it does, and I said it didn't because every person who is obsessed with war ends up losing something they love from it. And I think Arwen does that. Like, she's still going to feel like women need to be given the chance to do what men do, but she's not going to be like, oh, war's so great, you know?
Right, no, she's not a warmonger.
No,
she's just
essentially lost her father now, so she's lost something so important.
It was more about the frustration that she couldn't do anything than it was about wanting to do the thing.
Which there's nothing wrong with, but that's all they would let her do.
And they kept saying, like, there is honor in that, and she's like, yes, there's honor in that, but that's not what I want to do. You're not giving me a choice.
And she's good at fighting, too.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like she's bad at it. Like,
I mean, she killed the Witch King. Like, come on.
Yeah. She's very good at it.
So that's basically all my points. Do you have any other major differences we want to talk about?
Not major. I mean, I could talk forever about Faramir because it frustrates me.
Yeah.
I understand why they did it, but I was I knew at the time when I was reading the books that if he had been in the books a little bit more, he would have been my favorite character of literature, period. But as it is, it was Aragorn, because Aragorn's just, you're so invested in his story and he's there so often.
Like I said, it's his story.
No, and I love Aragorn. Like, Aragorn is just, I could talk for 10 hours about Aragorn without a problem. And Faramir is just so pure and so wonderful. It's almost like, it almost was the same feeling I had with Cedric Diggory in Cursed Child, where I'm like, don't do this is wrong, this isn't okay. And I just had issues with it, because I really love either very conflicted characters or very pure characters. I'm very drawn to either one, and I had a hard time with that.
I have some Gandalf points.
Okay.
So, first of all, we see him battle the Balrog, which I'm glad they kept it in the next movie.
Yeah.
Because that would have totally killed the emotional impact of his death and everything.
Yeah, it would have just been distracting too, like, when's he coming back, when's he coming back, when's he coming back?
Right, and I like that they reintroduced him into the story slightly earlier, but they didn't really get into the whole Saruman thing with it and everything, and they changed some things around there, but like, I think they handled that very well. I'm not sure how I feel about that actual fight in the movie, because I'm like, the CG doesn't really hold up, it kind of cheapens the fight, but it also shows us Gandalf being a badass, which we don't get to see most of the time. So I'm like,
no, you just see an old guy walking around.
It's sort of abstract. His power is kind of like, well, I can make lights. You know? It's just like,
it's more implied.
Yeah, so I kind of like that. But the other thing that just right at the very end of Return of the King, he's hanging out with everybody as they're shipping off, and he's got a ring. It's not the Ring of Power, obviously, but they're like, this is sort of the gathering of the other rings, because they're like, let's get these all out of here.
Ring bearers in general,
Right, but like, was he a ring bearer prior to that? Did they give it to him? Is he more powerful now with the white, being the white and having this ring? What is this ring? What is the lore of this ring? Wait a minute, it's not one of the elven rings, is it?
Yeah.
You know, I really don't know what it is, and I know you're going to tell me you have to read the Silmarillion, so like, apparently we're going to do this video again.
That's why it only took 6 years to get you to read Lord of the Rings.
Hey, but I did, and I did say that I wanted to do a lot more reading this year, and that is exactly what I have done.
Yeah.
Because I'm driving a lot. My job is 40 minutes away from my house on a good day. I have the time to not, like, read, but to listen.
Yeah. No,
and I have your Audible login, so thank you.
You're welcome. And like I said, I'm probably one of like 5 people in the world that wanted more endings to Return of the King, because, and now that you've listened to all of it, the thing I wanted so badly, I actually cried when I was reading everything after the book ends, whenever Legolas and Gimli do go traveling together
Yes!
and showing each other stuff, I'm like, I want to see their like buddy comedy.
Just like
I like cried knowing that happened.
Yeah.
I was like, I love
just
their
like them
friendship
walking
so
through the
much.
woods hand in hand.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
take him to the caves. Like
Taking the caves.
literally,
They didn't do the caves.
I know they didn't. I was
Like,
very upset.
we see the caves when they retreat into the caves in the Two Towers, I think. We do see some gems on the walls and everything.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
We do see some things. I don't think they quite captured Minas Tirith correctly with the whole like splendor of it,
Yeah.
but they did get the decay, but they got the white, and I'm like,
It looked different than I pictured it looking in my head because I was obsessed with Minas Tirith in the books. Obsessed. I love the design of the flag.
Oh,
I could talk about the flag forever.
Oh, the flag design's perfect. We need to talk about Denethor.
Yeah.
Because
there's a lot of differences.
There's a lot of differences there. Like, I really liked the book portrayal of Denethor because he was, like, not insane from the outset. The movies really kind of paint him as this crazy person. And it's like, no, he really doesn't show that problem until much later. Like, he's a much more plausible person to be followed in the books where they're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like in the movies, I'm like, why is anyone listening to this clearly insane person?
Well, I mean, try not to talk about politics now.
Fair point.
We pretty much have a Denethor in charge at the moment.
Well, yes. But like, it just kind of got to me because I'm like, we need to see this obviously in the movies.
We just didn't have time to show that whole progression.
Because like it's just another major character that needs all this explanation and everything, and the books really have the time to go
maybe
into
in the TV series that's coming now, they can go more into it, but
I'm so not sure how I feel about this. Anyway.
I know I kind of want to move Scotland to be involved. I know that.
But Denethor in the movies is just weaker. Like I wanted to see him use the other stone.
Yeah, he's a little more. I know. I kept waiting for that to happen.
Right, like it needed to happen so that we had some explanation and things. But like, it was fine. And then him jumping off the cliff at the end on fire and everything. I'm like, that's not. It's dramatic. It's a beautiful visual, but it's not what happened. You know?
There's a lot of that in the movies, which I understand. Again, it's a movie versus a book.
Right, you get to actually do the visual media.
Yeah,
you know?
and I love them both. I really, really, really do love them both.
We also didn't talk about, in Fellowship, the elves. The elf lords having all the legit magic, to stave off the Black Riders and everything. Like, we got the scene with the water horses and all that, but I'm like, that's not really, now I kind of want to see, I can't remember his name. I wanted to see that elf lord do his thing, like.
Yeah, they wanted to have Arwen do it, so like, she was kind of fun with a woman doing things, you know.
Yeah, because and even Tolkien's daughters at the time complained, there's not enough female characters in here, Dad.
Yeah, no.
Like, you need to have women have a point
something
in this world, something other than like, and that's where Eowyn really came from, and I guess Arwen in the movies as well.
Yeah.
And Galadriel was there as well, but like. She doesn't really do very much.
No, she's very distant.
Yeah, she's definitely the brains behind some operations. She without her they would have died. Like obviously, she was very important to the quest, but she wasn't like so much active. She was behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Which is definitely a problem for women in literature in general, because like especially in an epic like this where it's really about warriors and all that, but it's also really not because that's not a hobbit.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Oh, which did you prefer?
I sort of feel about it the way I do about the Harry Potter movies versus the books, because I'm like, if I really want to deep dive into it and really be immersed in that world, it's gotta be the audiobook, it's gotta be that, because then I don't have to like actively be reading and I can be in that world in my car.
Yeah.
But like, the movies are a really great shot in the arm that remind me how much I love the world without like being completely immersed in it.
Yeah.
So, and they're definitely separate media. Like we've been saying, some of the things that work well in movie do not work well as a book thing and vice versa.
Yeah.
I think like, I don't know, I think I still like the movies a lot. I just see them as a little different. And now that I've read the books, I can actually fully appreciate the decisions that were made, or at least partly, and oh god, we've talked about this. Like, we want those recordings of those meetings where they were like, how do we handle this? Which ones do we cut? How do we change this around? Like,
You'll like the commentaries a lot with the directors and writers.
We're about halfway through the commentary. I think we finished just one of the cast one.
Yeah.
But like, there's 3 other commentaries on those.
No, and you gotta watch all the extra stuff.
I'm diving
deeper. They go
deeper
into a lot of it. It's really great. I unfortunately have the commentaries and the bonus features, a lot of it memorized, so that's how bad I was when they came out, especially. I love them both. To me, they're very different things. I prefer the books, but just because I always prefer the books, basically, and that's what I first fell in love with. But like, for me, it's different than Harry Potter, because if I didn't love the Harry Potter books, I wouldn't love the movies. But Lord of the Rings, if I didn't like or hadn't read the books, I would 100% love the movies still.
I can see that. That's true. Because the Harry Potter movies don't really hold up on their own.
Yeah, Harry Potter I feel like is only a shot in the arm. It's like, okay, if you're a fan, you're going to like this, but I wouldn't expect anyone, I don't know, I wouldn't love it. I would think it was okay if I wasn't into the books.
Well, all the real fans of Harry Potter know that the musicals are definitely the best representation of the books.
The best.
They really are. They totally capture it. But sometimes you don't want to have to spend 6 hours straining to hear the dialogue that you somehow have memorized.
That's another problem. I know. Every time we watch a Harry Potter musical with someone new, we have to be quiet. I don't understand how we have it memorized because you can't hear what they're saying.
And they're not subtitled or captioned in any way.
I just have the entire musical memorized, and I'm like, how?
Like, you literally can't hear it.
No, but if we watch your friends that have seen it before, we're all talking, we're all doing the lines the whole time, so you don't even notice how quiet it is.
And that is all for this video.
Thieves, little thieves.
That's good.
Precious will be back next week with another interesting video. Until then, stay precious.
You're a dork. I love you. Are you happy?
I'm good.
Good.
Please store the precious.
What did you say?
Nothing.